Here we are once again, AAR, Aman Ashranu from ashranu.com. Today we're going to speak on the secret, or tonight rather, the secret of spirit communication. What I am attempting to accomplish in this stream is to simplify something that has been made overly complex so you can at least get your foot through the door and start having those communications and being able to verify the experience. It is all about verification, being able to show receipts. In order to know that you are truly communicating with a spirit, it will leave its signature or mark, which allows you to dig into the symbolism and find treasure, which is how you can verify that you were indeed communicating with something real because you were able to extract wisdom in a way that was not available to you prior to you working with that spirit. So that is the basis of what I want to establish. So let me give everybody a shout out. What's up, D Stun, 305 Capricorn? What's up, Donald Jones? And what's up, Ross? I appreciate everybody watching. So I'm definitely going to. What's up, student teacher? What's up, Harmon G? What's up? What's up? What's good? What's good? So, I cooked up a little beat, of course. So I wanted to try something new. So I'm going to be experimenting with various frequencies. So it's not going to be just a stagnant, repetitive sound like it has been, right? So it'll be some live variations. So just in case you're wondering, all right? We're not going to take up too much time, but let's go. All right, what's up, Mike? Let's get to it. First and foremost, okay, sure, I'll answer the question before we jump in. The question was asked, what do I think about, the virus that's going on right now, the world scare? And I simply answer that as this is a year of Shin. This is a year of judgment. This is a year of the Aeon. What do I mean when I say that? As I have been explaining, we are in a Plutonian year because we are dealing with the zero frequency, specifically the 20. The 20 is double 2020. The 20th degree in the tarot is the judgment card or the Aeon card, depending on which deck you use. If we correlate that to a Hebrew letter, it will correlate to the Hebrew letter Shin, which takes you to the frequency of Pluto. The reason why that's relevant because Pluto controls the collective conscious. Pluto, on the flip side, also controls propaganda. So any type of mass propaganda is also being influenced by Pluto. So the fact that we are in the year of Shin, and again I speak more about the Hebrew and all that on the website, the fact that we are in the year of judgment or the year of the Aeon means there will be a mass scare that is simply in the alignments based on numerology. So when we study numerology and we understand that 2 represents the energy of the moon and the number 0 represents the energy of Pluto, we have an emotional mass consciousness. The mass is being emotionally affected, right? And this is what we see. We see the masses, like we're going to have in the back of our mind, do I actually got this virus? Because we're going to see that in the forefront. And of course, this is an election year. So we got all these dynamics planned out to keep you distracted on what's actually occurring on the spiritual realm. And this is why I wanted to establish how to develop your spiritual communication, because on a ground level, it's going to be hellish. Because Shin, or Pluto, represents the fires. So Pluto brings the fires. So it's going to be very infamous, as we've only in the third month, and look at what has happened within 2 months, right? In a new decade, new century, right? Not new century, excuse me, new decade. We're in a new decade, and we already is feeling it, right? Because that's the fires of Pluto, the fires of Shin. The masses will be affected via their subconscious, which is the emotional plane. That's going to happen. So the more we understand the mathematics, the more we understand the numerology, all of the things that's put before us, we don't take it out of context. We just simply follow the numbers, or follow the money, as they say, right? We're just simply in tune with the numbers. We are in the third month. 3 correlates to Jupiter. So we are in 2020. So we understand Pluto, Moon. Now we take it to the number 3, which brings us to Jupiter, which we will feel on a closer level. And we know Jupiter to be the planet of wisdom, the guru planet, where we extract wisdom. So if we synchronize the Moon, Jupiter, and Pluto as one holistic energy, you have the subconscious mind through the Moon, you have the mass consciousness through Pluto, and you have through Jupiter the ability to expand. Jupiter allows us to expand. It represents expansion. So expansion of emotional energy through the masses. So this is what's playing out through numbers. So arm yourself with the occult science so that you are not led astray, because you see, when we are properly equipped, we can dismantle any type of propaganda that's simply utilizing the mathematics. The language of the universe is mathematics. So once we arm ourselves, everything is just simply to be observed. We're going to see how it plays out. And we decide whether we want to be on the positive side of the scale or the negative side of the scale. So you can either be led astray following the masses, or you could acquire power, because Pluto will allow you to acquire power. It all depends on which side of the scale you choose to be on. Either you will acquire power, or you're going to be afraid of death. If you are afraid to die, then you're going to be afraid of anything that threatens your life. If you are not afraid of risk and being able to show forth courage, then you welcome the danger. When you welcome the danger, you can find these hidden treasures that most people just simply ignore because they are walking in fear. Which is why we arm ourselves with spiritual intelligence, because this intelligence is beyond the physical. At a certain point, after we become well read, we have to actually go out and conduct experiments. The purpose of conducting experiments is to build a relationship with an invisible intelligence that is not tangible with the physical eye, but it can be sensed with the sixth sense, which we call intuition, any of the clairs. So you can't see it physically, but it can be sensed via our clairs, our higher senses, the sixth sense, whatever you want to call it. So you can feel a presence, you can see it via clairvoyance. You clearly know that something is there, but it's not matter, or it's not a tangible or dense form of matter. It is a lighter form of matter. Matter nonetheless, but of a less dense form than what we're used to, which is what we call 4D, so on and so forth. Take a break. Let us continue. So, when we conduct experiments via real time, when we arm ourselves with the occult science, because that allows us to do things properly, right? But this is very time consuming to plot and plan all of these things. So it's very complex. Most people just don't have the time to consider all these factors that are very much in play and that are complex. Again, if you don't understand planets, you don't understand numbers, you don't understand symbols, and you're trying to understand the universe, is going to be very hard if the language of the universe is mathematics and science. So we have to arm ourselves with the proper keys to unlock the doors of the other 90% of the brain that's not tapped into. Because you can say the conscious mind is responsible for only 10% of the brain. So when it says we only use 10% of our brain, that's the portion of the conscious mind, what we call the conscious mind. That's only 10%. That other 90% rests within the subconscious and the unconscious, which is the purpose of us establishing communications with higher intelligence. Or what you're essentially doing is establishing communication with your subconscious mind and your unconscious mind, that other 90% of the brain. Because that other 90% of the brain, you can't just get in because it's not right in your face. You actually have to encode a program within yourself and you have to grow it within. What do I mean? Because we understand that you can't just open up the subconscious mind because you have the ego. The ego guards the subconscious mind because anything that is imprinted on the subconscious mind will actually reflect in your reality. So the ego is set into place to guard against anything that would alter it, anything that would threaten the safety. So when you are attempting to establish subconscious communication and unconscious communication, you are doing it in a way that requires you to take a reverse angle of things because now we're not relying on logic. Now we're going beyond logic because the subconscious mind does not respond to logic, nor does the unconscious mind respond to logic. So we can no longer rely on logic after the conscious mind. So the other 90% of the brain, we have to go beyond logic to even understand, which is why it's so hard to understand and why all this is labeled pseudoscience. It's labeled pseudoscience for that very reason because it goes beyond the 10% of the brain. It goes beyond the conscious mind. It goes beyond what can be observed with the physical eye alone. Because at some point or at a certain point, you have to develop your third eye. You have to develop your clairvoyance. You have to grow your clairvoyance because everything cannot be seen via the physical eye. But we're not limited to the physical eye. We are not limited to the five senses, because we have more. But they have to be developed. In the development of these various spiritual abilities that we all have inherited, we will be able to penetrate the other 90%. Now, of course, this is not easy. Because again, it's not as easy as just reading a book and memorizing something and that's all you do. This is conscious effort on a daily basis on top of what you already have to do. So on top of everything you have to take care of on a daily basis, now you're adding an extra layer of sophistication. So that extra layer of sophistication will allow you to see more, but it is harder to penetrate. What do I mean? When you equip yourself with occult knowledge, so just because you know what the numbers mean, you know what the letters mean, you can correlate letters with numbers, you can break down names, you have access to all of this information. If you don't know how to properly discern it, it's just going to be a bunch of information. In any given room, you have infinite information revolving around you. It's all about what information do you discern and how relevant is the information and how not relevant is other information. You have to sort out what's relevant and what's not relevant after you develop your awareness. Just because you have awareness, you're aware of everything, but you have to have wisdom in order to discern the useful from what's not useful. Right? Take a break. Let's go. Continuing on. What are the tools we have to unlock this spiritual communication? This is what mythology is. This is what the deities are. They tap us into this other 90% that remains hidden via the conscious mind. You do not need the other 90% to live life. It is not necessary to have access to the other 90% to, do everyday activities, to be in beta brainwaves, to process logic and information. You don't need access to the other 90%. So in everyday life, we don't need access to that other 90% to pay our bills, to survive, to be able to move forward and thrive in life. Again, this is all extra work that is not necessary, but most efficient and rewarding if you take upon the challenge. That's the thing. The reason why people can deny these things is because they could look around at their life. Well, I've got this from life without this information, so how relevant is it? And they would be absolutely right once you limit it to the 10% or the conscious mind. So if you are not considering the other 90%, if you are only considering the 10%, then you are 100% correct. As if that's all reality is. However, we know different via quantum physics, quantum entanglement. So we know that there is a underlying reality that's taking place that is very chaotic and very unpredictable. If you observe it, it appears to be chaos. However, it still maintains some type of order because once we scale up reality and we get to the tangible 3D world, we see order. So if you scale down to the quantum world, you see chaos, but if you scale up to the tangible world, you see order. The reason that is because even in that chaos, it is order, but the chaos, it appears to be chaos because it is just the brain doesn't know how to comprehend that other 90%. That's all it is. So what they call quantum physics and quantum mechanics, they don't have any imagery to associate with that. The imagery of the atom and all the imagery that they show us. That's not what's actually going on. That's just as close as they can get to show you what they think is happening. That's not what actually. So if you look at the picture of an atom, that's not how an atom actually looks. That's just the closest representation that they can get to. That's not the actual reality. The actual reality remains hidden because the actual reality exists within that 90%. And because the actual reality exists within that 90%, once you start to develop your sixth sense and gain access to that 90%, you actually are able to associate visuals and imagery to the science. Instead of given a representation that we're given, you actually can read and interpret this, which is interpreted as deities. What we call deities are equations or patterns, imprints, blueprints, signatures of the universe that are everlasting. This is why all over the world we have mythology, which encoded the science. The science was encoded in story via mythology. Because if you know the story of a thing, you know the science of a thing. Because if you memorize the story of something, for example, most of us probably know the stories of who we call Jesus. Whether we follow that or not, we are at least aware of the stories. We have the stories committed to memory, whether we care for it or not. This is why when you actually tap into those stories that you already know, that's already memorized, that you're not going to forget, they're already encoded in the mind. It's not for you to push it out, it's for you to dig deeper. This is what Gnosticism is. Gnosticism is the underlining of these stories, which are already encoded in our brain, and they're not going anywhere. We can access these hidden treasures through Gnosticism. That's how we access things that are not going anywhere. So instead of trying to push a program out, you are going deeper into the program. This is the difference between trying to push something out. Oh, I don't want this reality, so I want to reprogram it with something else. Instead of going deeper into the reality and going into the quantum world and influencing it via quantum. Instead of saying what you don't like, you are influencing via quantum. Influence via quantum is what we call spirits. Because spirits are there. Spirits, you can say, are on a quantum realm, on a quantum scale. They're not tangible or they're not dense. However, they are real. So, this takes us to the next level. Let's take a break. All right, we approach the grand finale. So now that we understand this, now we arrive at the secret of spirit communication. Now that we understand the foundation, we got the foundation laid down. All right. Now we can understand when I speak about spirits. Now we get it, right? Now we got the scientific foundation. Now it's not spooky. Now let's deal with it for what it really is. So if you look at it for what it really is, if we just observe, why do we see the same deities everywhere on the planet? Why does every spiritual system or religion have the same planetary deities? You have deities that can be linked to planets. That means they can be linked to numbers. So if reality is based on numbers, numbers can correlate to planets. Planets then correlate to deities. Then deities then correlate to equations. Equations then correlate to quantum entanglement. Then quantum entanglement, basically once you entangle yourself with these spirits, with these deities, or what they call making pacts with spirits, that's quantum entanglement. Now that we have the scientific, we can speak about it. That's quantum entanglement. When you make pacts with spirits, that means you are entangling your energy with the spirit. That's all you're doing. Quantum entanglement. What does that mean? When two atoms interact with each other, it does not matter how far they are from each other. They can be on two sides of the universe, but they still reflect each other's opposite. So one will always be A and the other one would always be B, or one will always be positive and the other would always be negative. They will always be connected. Does not matter the distance. So the distance becomes irrelevant. They are always behaving as if they are right next to each other. So they are always operating via that connection. So what does that mean? So because spirits operate in the quantum world, when you entangle yourself with this energy, that means distance, time, and space becomes irrelevant, which is why when you work with spirits, they can predict the future. They're going to tell you past, present, and future, so on and so forth. That's what that means, because they are outside of that circle of reality. So when you entangle yourself, that means time becomes irrelevant, which is why they can reveal information to you that is beyond time. Right? So we're just adding the scientific value to it. Let's take a break. Quantum entanglement, spirit communication, quantum entanglement. So once you establish that communication, you are then infinitely accessing this intelligence that goes beyond time and space. This is what we call black magic, right? Because you're not supposed to do this. So if you do this, you're dealing deals with the devil or you're making pacts with the devil. This is why this is forbidden, or it has a stigma attached to it, because being able to do these type of things would mean you are some type of deity yourself. You are some type of godly essence yourself. How are you able to have access to this type of intelligence if you are not divine in and of yourself? So this is why this information, this type of energy is forbidden, because it gives you access to stuff that you should not know. So if you have access to what you should know, you could actually alter things. And your ability to alter things makes you powerful. That's what power is. You have the ability to alter reality because you understand the dynamics at play. When you understand the dynamics at play, you can then alter the play on the field. It starts with knowledge. So hopefully it makes sense now, right? We don't have to be spooky about this. We don't have to be extra about it. This is science. This is mythology. This is what we do. We have always done, and we will continue to do via the end of time, which is infinite. There is no beginning, no ending. All right, there we go. Hopefully you enjoyed it. That's all we have. So boom, what's up? What's up, Lower X, Mr. 777, Harmony 9. Take care. Peace.